There was a time when I felt like I was always behind. I woke up tired, ran through my day reacting to everything, and went to sleep feeling like I didn't do enough. It wasn't that I didn't try hard, it's that I didn't feel aligned. I was working, but not growing, busy, but not fulfilled, and that cycle drained me. Then one day, I did something small, almost too small to seem like it would make any real difference. I sat down with a notebook and wrote 3 things I was grateful for. That's it, no fancy journal, no grand routine, just 3 simple thoughts. At first, it felt like a box I was checking, but then something changed. That small moment in the morning began to shift my entire day. I started noticing the good things instead of complaining about what was missing. I became more aware of my thoughts, my emotions, and my reactions. I realized how much of my life I was missing simply because I wasn't present. That one habit, just 5 minutes of intentional reflection, created space, space to breathe, space to think, space to grow. I started adding more to that ritual: affirmations, intentions, a short meditation. It became my sacred time, the time I wasn't giving to anyone else, not work, not social media, not stress, just me, my values, my peace. And the crazy thing, everything outside of me began to improve too. Relationships, productivity, my ability to handle stress, because when the inside is calm, the outside stops feeling like chaos. That one habit became the foundation for all the other habits. It helped me build discipline, create focus, and reconnect with who I truly was. We often think change requires a massive shift, a new job, a move, a transformation overnight. But sometimes all it takes is one small choice, done repeatedly with intention. One habit, practiced consistently, can change the direction of your entire life. There's a common belief that if you want to change your life, you need to make massive changes overnight. Quit your job, move to a new city, wake up at 4 a.m. every single day. But what I've learned is that real, lasting change doesn't come from big, dramatic moves. It comes from doing small things consistently. Consistency is what turns ideas into habits, and habits into identity. In the beginning, it feels uncomfortable. You tell yourself, this is too slow, or it's not making a difference. But what you don't realize is that change is happening silently, underneath the surface, like seeds planted in soil. At first, nothing looks different. But one day, the roots are strong enough, and something begins to grow. That growth doesn't come from doing something once. It comes from showing up, again and again, even when you don't feel like it. There were times I didn't want to get out of bed and do the thing I promised myself I'd do. Whether it was journaling, meditating, reading, or even just sitting with my thoughts. But the more I kept the promise to myself, the more I started to trust myself. That trust, that self-respect, is the true power of consistency. It's not about the habit itself. It's about what the habit says to your mind and your heart. I believe in myself enough to keep going. The mistake most of us make is waiting for motivation to show up before we take action. But motivation doesn't come before action. It comes after. You do the thing first, and then the energy follows. That's what consistency teaches you. It teaches you that you don't need to feel ready, you just need to begin. And keep beginning over and over again. Consistency builds momentum. It creates rhythm. It teaches discipline without punishment. And most importantly, it rewires your brain. Every time you show up, you tell your mind, this is who I am now. Over time, that identity becomes your reality. You go from being someone who tries to someone who is. That's the transformation, not overnight, not all at once, But little by little, day by day, through the quiet, powerful force of simply showing up, the way you begin your day is the way you live your life. That first hour, the moments right after you wake up, they shape the way your mind thinks, the way your heart feels, and the way your energy flows. Most people wake up and dive straight into noise, notifications, emails, news, chaos, and then they wonder why the rest of their day feels rushed, scattered, or heavy. But what if you treated your mornings like a sacred space, a foundation instead of a fight? There was a time I used to start my day reacting. I'd reach for my phone before I even opened both eyes. My mood depended on the messages I saw, the news I scrolled through, or the posts I compared myself to. I didn't realize it, but I was giving away my peace before I even had a chance to claim it, and that energy carried into every interaction, every task, every decision. I was letting the outside world dictate my inner world. Then I made a shift, just a small one. I started waking up a bit earlier, not to be productive, but to be intentional. I gave myself 20 minutes, then 30, then an hour, and in that time, I did things that grounded me. A moment of silence, a deep breath, a few lines in a journal, a sentence of gratitude, a stretch, something simple but sacred, not because it was trendy, not because someone told me to, but because it felt like I was finally giving myself permission to arrive in my own life before the world pulled me in every direction. That morning ritual changed everything. I felt calmer going into work. I felt clearer when facing problems. I didn't panic when plans changed, because I had already centered myself before the world had the chance to shake me. I realized mornings are not about how much you do, but how deeply you connect to your purpose, to your breath, to your values. You don't need a perfect routine. You just need presence. The morning isn't just a time slot. It's a mindset. Start your day from a place of peace, and you'll notice how that peace follows you into even the most chaotic places. Every sunrise is a fresh start. Make it count. We live in a world that glorifies busyness. The more packed your schedule is, the more productive you seem. The faster you move, the more accomplished you feel. And somewhere in this race, we've come to believe that multitasking is the answer, that doing 5 things at once makes us more efficient, more valuable, more successful. But if we're honest, multitasking doesn't make us more present. It makes us more distracted. It doesn't bring peace. It brings pressure. There was a time when I prided myself on juggling everything at once. I'd respond to messages while on a call, plan the next task while doing the current one, and even try to relax while scrolling through social media. But I started to notice something. My mind never felt still. I was always in between thoughts, in between tasks, in between moments, and I wasn't really living any of them fully. Then I heard something that changed everything. You can't be in 2 places at once, and that includes your mind. That hit me, because while my body was in one place, my mind was always somewhere else. I realized that I was robbing myself of the depth and beauty of each moment by constantly jumping to the next. That's when I began the practice of mindfulness. Not in a fancy way, just in a focused way. I started doing one thing at a time, just one. When I was eating, I ate. When I was walking, I walked. When I was listening to someone, I actually listened. No distractions, no planning ahead, just presence, and what surprised me the most was how much more fulfilling everything became. Simple tasks felt meaningful. Conversations became richer. Even silence started to feel like a gift instead of a gap. We think slowing down means falling behind, but it actually means catching up to yourself. It means being fully where you are instead of half present everywhere. Mindfulness teaches us that depth is more powerful than speed. That being here, right now, is more important than trying to be everywhere at once. Life isn't meant to be rushed through. It's meant to be felt, savored, experienced. And that can only happen when you stop multitasking and start truly living each moment with intention. That shift alone can bring more clarity and peace than any to-do list ever will. There's something powerful about putting thoughts on paper. We carry so much in our minds: worries, ideas, regrets, dreams, conversations we wish we had, emotions we don't fully understand. All of it builds up, and when we don't release it, we start to feel heavy. That's what journaling became for me. Not a task, not another thing to check off, but a release, a way to breathe on paper. In the beginning, I didn't really know what to write. I thought journaling meant I had to document every detail of my day, but over time I realized it wasn't about what I wrote. It was about how honestly I wrote it. Some days I'd write about my fears, other days about what I was grateful for. Sometimes it was just one sentence. Sometimes it was a stream of emotion that poured out without filter, and in those words I found something unexpected: clarity. Writing helped me organize the chaos inside my head. It was like having a conversation with the version of myself I rarely take time to meet. The quiet version, the honest one, the part of me that doesn't shout over noise but waits patiently to be heard. Journaling gave that part a voice, and that voice guided me through moments of confusion, decisions I was stuck on, emotions I couldn't explain. There's something healing about seeing your own thoughts laid out in front of you. They stop swirling, they slow down. You begin to notice patterns: what triggers you, what inspires you, what you've outgrown. You start to understand yourself in a way you never did before. And the more you write, the more you grow. Not because life gets easier, but because your awareness deepens. The most beautiful thing about journaling is that it doesn't require perfection. Your grammar doesn't matter. Your spelling doesn't matter. You're not writing for anyone else. You're writing to meet yourself, to reflect, to pause, to remind yourself of what matters, to say the things you're afraid to say out loud. Over time, those pages become more than words. They become mirrors. They show you where you've been, how far you've come, and who you're becoming. And in a world that moves fast and demands more, journaling gives you the gift of stillness, a place to return to, a place to just be. We often believe that change has to be loud, that in order to transform our lives, we need big moments, huge breakthroughs, overnight success, dramatic shifts. But real transformation rarely happens that way. It begins quietly, with something so small it almost feels insignificant. A 5-minute habit, a new way of thinking, a single choice repeated daily. That's the truth most people miss. Small wins, done consistently, lead to massive change. I remember when I started practicing a daily routine. It didn't look impressive. It was just 10 minutes of reflection, a few lines of writing, a short walk without my phone. But I did it every day. And while nothing magical happened on the first day, something began to shift inside me over time. My mindset changed, my energy changed, and eventually my life changed. Not because I did something extraordinary, but because I didn't stop doing the ordinary. Small wins build trust, not just with the world, but with yourself. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, even a tiny one, you strengthen the belief that you're someone who follows through. That belief becomes a new identity. You start to carry yourself differently. You stop waiting for motivation and start creating momentum. We overlook small wins because they don't give instant results. They don't get applause, but they build the foundation of everything meaningful. Think about how a plant grows. You water it daily, even when you don't see it sprouting. Eventually, that hidden growth breaks the surface. Your habits are the same. They're the invisible work that leads to visible change. Some days, it will feel boring, repetitive. You might even wonder if it's working. But that's the exact moment when most people quit, right before the breakthrough. The people who grow, the people who transform, they aren't always the most talented or the most lucky. They're the ones who keep showing up. They're the ones who stay faithful to the small things. And when you look back, you'll realize the habit that once felt small became the very thing that shaped who you are. The small win becomes the big shift. That one page turns into a book. That 5-minute meditation becomes inner peace. That tiny habit becomes a completely different life. Because every big change is simply the result of small steps, walked consistently with purpose. The greatest changes in our lives rarely come from sudden, dramatic events. They come from the quiet, consistent choices we make every single day. One habit, done with intention, nurtured with patience, and repeated with discipline, can completely shift the direction of your life. It's not about perfection, it's not about speed, it's about presence, about showing up for yourself even when no one is watching. Whether it's how you start your morning, the way you slow down to truly focus, the space you create to reflect through journaling, or the courage to believe that even your smallest efforts matter, each of these builds something deeper than a routine. They build your character, your identity, your peace. We often search for something outside of us to create change, but the truth is that power has always lived within us. One simple habit, embraced wholeheartedly, can become the anchor in chaos, the light in confusion, and the spark for transformation. You don't have to do everything. You just have to do one thing consistently, mindfully, and with purpose. That's where everything begins.